Right. Uh-huh. Yeah. Hey, let's go. Hopefully everything is good with you. Uh-huh. Welcome. There we go. Welcome to Our Real Truth with beatzillapdx official. I am beatzillapdx officially. Yes, indeed. Coming to you once again. Beatzilla PDX official. And this particular broadcast is called Our Real Truth with Beatzilla PDX official. There we go. All right, so how's everybody doing? This is an impromptu live. And this will also be going up on the broadcast as well on Anchor FM. So you could find that, Anchor FM, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts. That is Our Real Truth with Beatzilla PDX official. And you can find me at Instagram, Beatzilla PDX, Twitter, Beatzilla PDX, and Facebook, Beatzilla PDX, and on Melanated People at Michael Beatzilla Whitmore. So, with that being said, I just wanted to come in here real quick. Hey, Silent D, what's going on? We are in the building today. All right. So this one, of course, being the podcast, I am not on screen and on camera. But if you are watching this on YouTube, which I would advise anyone to, you could get both versions. You could download if you subscribe to the podcast from iTunes, and you'll be good right there. So let's get some things going on here. All right. So we know what's going on right now with Juneteenth being this week, with Father's Day being Sunday, and this also being Black Music Month. We have had some interesting developments over the past weekend. We've also had, we had Tupac, a Tupac shirt from the Tupac estate, and they put out a rainbow flagged Tupac shirt and whatnot. And, of course, people had a problem with it because that really wasn't the representation that we would know of Tupac. But, with him being passed and his mother being passed, it makes it so much easier when, you get a chance to do whatever you will with an image that these people can no longer have any say in. So, with that being said, we now have Juneteenth as a national holiday. I don't know if it's yet official all the way, but it's on its way. One thing to understand about this is, although it is good, Oyela Aket, welcome, Shabazz. Desmond works. What's going on, my brother? So, we have this this whole thing going on right now where people are trying to kind of co-opt Juneteenth, because now this would be the first Black holiday celebrating the I guess America's history of slavery and celebrating the freedom of these our ancestors, our family members, because a lot of us are only a few generations removed from the plantation ourselves. So for me, I'm kind of one of the lucky ones. I grew up with people around us who had a lot of the oral history of our time in slavery. So I got a chance to hear things firsthand. Uh, and again, one thing to remember about slavery, a lot of people like read books about a group of illiterate individuals. So who's giving you the information? Did that really come from the slaves themselves, or did that come from whoever wanted you to believe what? Now, with that being said, I will tell you for a fact, Harriet Tubman did exist. So did Nat Turner. Don't let these people get out here and confuse you. But again, that's also part of the trick. So, white supremacy always will want to have its hands in control of both sides of the argument at all times. That way they always win. Well, with this being said, this week we have, like I said, Juneteenth coming up, which is definitely, it's a good thing to have a holiday. However, we know how our people do. They like to get into these situations where we'll have a plantation jubilee. Just like in this last week in Tulsa, at the beginning of the month, when we had all these people out there cutting a jig, having a plantation jubilee. Now, this week, they just did the Pulse nightclub shooting 5 years after the fact. And with that being said, these people figured, well, it's going to be a somber occasion. People are still out there crying. Fast forward, well, actually, I guess you would have to back up 1 year from the Pulse nightclub shooting, and then look at the Mother of Emmanuel shooting, the Dylan Roof shooting that took place a year prior, which that anniversary is coming up this weekend as well. So these are all the things we're experiencing this week of Juneteenth, in the middle of Black Music Month, which was started June 7th, 1979. So if anyone is confused, the annual Pride Day officially didn't get instated until 1999. So we don't have to debate which was first. That's like you debating with your 20-year-old child and asking them who came first. But with that being said, of course, on both of these platforms, which are both on YouTube, you can always rely on me to make sure I go get some receipts and to get some information that is helpful to understand some of the things that have went on in this country. And one of the main reasons why we need critical race truthology. That's just the truth telling of American history. We can't get away from that, and we can't afford to shun it. I was going to do this and just upload it, but I figured, why not just go live? So without any further ado, let me turn this music off for you and let me get into this video. All right. So here we go.
A long time, if you went to the library in Wilmington, North Carolina, there was one thing you weren't allowed to research.
We were refused. We were rejected by the librarian.
When I asked about or inquired about 1898, they wanted to know why.
I was told that, yes, they had something, but they kept it under lock and key.
The story of Wilmington in 1898 still isn't widely known.
What happened here on what's now just this empty patch of grass would radically change racial politics in North Carolina.
This is the story of an American election, but also of something we don't usually find in American history: the violent overthrow of a democratically elected government. In the late 1800s, Wilmington, North Carolina was the state's largest city. It had a majority black population, and historians today describe it as a rarity in the post-Civil War American South.
Wilmington, prior to November 1898, was what the New South could be at the cusp of the 20th century.
There was an unusual degree of black prosperity.
In Wilmington, there were successful black entrepreneurs, doctors, teachers, but also black elected officials. And for a time, that was true throughout the state. Take a look at the politicians on this poster of the 1889 North Carolina House of Representatives. Here at the bottom are black Republican representatives, some from Wilmington. North Carolina also sent 4 black Republicans to the U.S. Congress between 1875 and 1899. The Democratic and Republican parties of 1898 in many ways occupied opposite parts of the political spectrum than they do today.
Most African Americans were voting for the Republican Party, and the Democratic Party was white voters almost exclusively. White supremacy was the central focus of the platform for the Democratic Party.
Republicans in North Carolina were successful in part because of a third party called the Populist Party, made up of mostly white farmers fed up with the tough economic times. North Carolina populists joined up with Republicans to form what they called the Fusion Party. And in the elections of 1894 and 1896, the Fusion Party defeated the Democrats in sweeping victories statewide. That meant North Carolina now had a government that shared power between black and white politicians, including a newly elected Republican governor. Together, they moved towards reforms that would favor black Americans and working-class whites.
This was something that the Democratic Party folks were simply not going to accept.
A multiracial government wasn't just a disappointment for Democrats. It was more like a humiliation. They needed a plan to take back control of the state in the next election. So party leaders like Furnifold Simmons, future U.S. Senator, Charles Aycock, future North Carolina governor, and this man, Alfred Moore Waddell, came up with one: to beat the Fusion Party by luring white populist voters away from their alliance with black voters. Wilmington, with a large black population and a local fusion government in power, would be a focus of their campaign. The state Democratic Party handbook for 1898 laid out their goal: consolidate the white vote by stoking white anger and resentment. It said, "This is a white man's country, and white men must control and govern it." Their most effective tool was the media. One of North Carolina's biggest newspapers was a Democratic Party mouthpiece. It ran racist political cartoons throughout 1898.
Not everybody was literate in 1898, but to see a political cartoon of the type that ran, you may not be able to read it, but you know exactly what it means.
Many of the cartoons were centered on the threat of Negro rule, even though the fusion government was mostly white. They also played up another fear.
Black men threatening white women became a theme. White men need to do all that they can to protect white womanhood.
This was all part of North Carolina Democratic strategy, but it echoed the national racist rhetoric of the time. In one speech that Democrats printed in a Wilmington paper, a prominent Georgia writer named Rebecca Felton said,
"If it takes lynching a black man a day to protect white womanhood, I say lynch."
Her speech prompted a Wilmington black man named Alex Manley, owner of the black-run Daily Record newspaper, to respond with a column. He made a simple observation that, at the time, was shocking.
That white women who had liaisons with black men did so voluntarily and enthusiastically.
Manley wrote, "Every Negro lynched is called a big burly black brute, when in fact many were sufficiently attractive for white girls to fall in love with them."
Manley pretty much said, in a nutshell, sometimes white women choose to be with black men.
Manley's editorial became another tool for Democrats. Newspapers reprinted it, called it a horrid slander, and ran comments about it on a daily basis. It was just a few months before the election, and white voters were angry.
By the time the election rolls around on November 8th, black voters, Republican voters, had been thoroughly intimidated here.
By all accounts, the elections of 1898 were a sham. The Democratic Party had a paramilitary group called the Red Shirts. They attacked and blocked black residents from voting. At a rally just before the election, Alfred Moore Waddell provoked the crowds. He said, "Negro office holding ought at once and forever be brought to an end, even if we have to choke the current of the Cape Fear River with carcasses." The votes were counted, and the Democrats won.
Democratic candidates won every seat they had a candidate up for election in.
But some local fusionist politicians remained in power because their seats hadn't been up for re-election, like the white Republican mayor and the Board of Aldermen. And of course, the election did nothing to undo the economic power black folks held in the city. The Democrats had won the election, but their goal of total white supremacist control remained out of reach.
And so they engineered what was essentially a coup d'etat.
The day after the election, at a gathering for white men in Wilmington, the Democrats unveiled a document called the White Declaration of Independence. It contained an ultimatum. Cynthia Brown, whose descendants were in Wilmington back in 1898, is a historian at her church where there's a preserved copy of the Declaration from the next day's newspaper.
"We will no longer be ruled and will never again be ruled by men of African origin."
They would strip black men of voting rights. They would give white men a large part of the employment heretofore given to black men. And as for Alex Manly, "We demand that he leave this city forever within 24 hours. The next morning, hundreds of white men marched to the offices of the Daily Record. Manly was gone. He had fled to save his own life. They set the Daily Record building on fire. This is where it once stood.
Once the white leadership destroyed Alex Manly's printing press, they destroyed one way in which the African American community in Wilmington could organize itself and keep itself informed.
At City Hall, the mayor and Board of Aldermen were forced out.
There's 200 armed men in City Hall at the time. They didn't do it of their own free will. And as they resigned, a new member selected by the Democratic Party was voted into office.
Waddell, who once threatened to fill the Cape Fear River with black bodies, was the new mayor of Wilmington. Meanwhile, the mob had grown to about 2,000 men, and the violence spilled into the streets. In these photos, X's mark where the first black residents were killed.
The stories are that they were dumped into the river, and there are varying stories about how many people were killed.
I see 40 to 60 clearly as fatalities as a result of the violence, but I think it was higher.
Many black residents hid for days in the swamps and the wooded cemeteries in the city, including Cynthia's great-grandmother. And thousands of other residents fled Wilmington, never to return. Shortly afterward, Democrats printed booklets celebrating a glorious victory, and in the newspapers depicted black residents as the instigators.
This image is a gross misrepresentation of what actually happened during 1898. You know, what you see is African American men with guns, not white men with machine guns.
The city never regained its black majority population. Jim Crow laws like literacy tests and poll taxes that prevented black people from voting were immediately enacted, and Wilmington's spirit of black opportunity was crushed. Black political representation in the state was over. It would be 90 years until North Carolina elected its next black Congress member.
Wilmington did a really great job of covering up a very dark past for a very long time.
Over the years, the textbooks on North Carolina's history have struggled to accurately describe what happened in 1898. This one from 1933 says the situation was unfortunate for both races. And this one from 1978 doesn't have that much more detail. But they both praised Charles Aycock, a politician who helped perpetrate the riot. They say he had a keen mind and a kind heart, and that, in fact, he was one of the best friends that the colored people had in the state.
It's a legacy that North Carolina has yet to fully undo.
Ooh.
The names of the perpetrators are on Wilmington's school buildings and city parks. But the legacy is also bigger than those names. Turn on the news, and the state's long history of political suppression echoes.
And we turn to a strict new voter ID law in North Carolina. Racial gerrymandering and a push for new voting maps.
The court says the Republican-led legislature redrew congressional districts along racial lines, violating the Constitution.
There's a tremendous amount of intimidation that is still felt by the Black community.
It doesn't have to be mass mayhem and violence in the streets.
The strategy shifts towards designing state laws in such a way that you could exclude Blacks from voter participation.
The subliminal pursuit of continuing the white Declaration of Independence.
And if you don't see it for what it really is, it can happen all over again.
Well, she does definitely have a point there, doesn't she? So, what do y'all think about that? You know, that is something that, I saw that. I'm like, oh, wow. It makes so much sense. And think about how they, screw North Carolina. But think about how, like they use the media. So the whole part where they're using the media as propaganda. Remember, I always tell you, it's a tool of war, and they were thoroughly using it to their advantage, definitely by far. And real quick, you know, we have a real big issue in our community with a few of us being a little more emotional than rational. When it comes down to analyzing our history, we got to understand why certain things get promoted to us. Devils. Like Queen Amadai. Right? You know, Judah Queen in the house and LaFell in the house. You know, we have to make sure we always stay focused on how they do it, how they use these little different tactics and tricks and whatnot. And, you know, one of them has always been using their women against us. Now, like you heard, Janae Whitney, welcome. They've always kind of used their women. They've used our women most definitely, but they use their women as props of propaganda. So, you know, the whole black brute. And it was funny what the dude said, you know, how that brother wrote it. They ran him out of town and burnt down his newspaper. But, you know, he just kept it real. Like, no, your women find black men attractive. That's just the truth of that matter. And they are willfully dating these black men. With that being said, you know, we have seen places like Rosewood. You should do a live on the history of white supremacy in Oregon. I actually did, Desmond. I did that back in, I did that actually in February. That's what got me blocked off of Facebook. I went live with Silent D and Mac Rue. So, yeah, man, you should check that out. I talked a lot about the Lash laws, the actual legal slavery in Oregon. And we went in there. Go check that out, definitely. But with this, you know, understanding how they use their women, Rosewood, Tulsa, and all of these other different Emmett Till, all these men that have been falsely accused of rape, shall we say, by those magical magical white woman tears. Well, this is something that has been popping up here lately. And let's just go into that, shall we? This is really interesting. So it's just how convincing they are. Okay, now it's tripping. Let me see if it'll. Oh, now we're going. Turn it off. Okay, so we're just having a whole hell of a time here, aren't we? It should be playing just fine. I probably should have downloaded this. I can do that. No, I can't. Good grief. There we go. Okay, let me see if I can start it again. There we go. Turn it off. Turn it off. Yeah. So, when people are like, oh man, wow, we need to believe. We just need to believe her right off the rip. Yeah. And I mean, this, what does this say to you? You know what I mean? What does this say to you? When I saw this, it just made me think of Emmett Till, Rosewood.
Hey, look, they took my last video down for hate speech, so I'm not going to say anything. All I'm going to say is, under that sound, a bunch of videos of white women crying, who are crying. And then when the beat drops, they stop crying. Right? And the challenge is to show how convincing that performance was. I'm not going to say anything. All I'm going to say is. Right. I'm not gonna say anything. You know. Right.
Oh Lord. Oh, come on now. All right. And I just wanted to show y'all that real quick. And just letting you know what is going on out here. Let me show you this. Because we need to really get out of these certain mind states. And it's really sad. It is really sad. We have too many of our own that just desire to be plantation children. 6 years after the Charleston church shooting, Mother Emanuel AME will hold a discussion on forgiveness, reconciliation, and social justice. Well, at least you've seen somebody say there. And this is by more information. So, you have on code folks responding to this. But this is the article from today. I mean, just look at that. It's ridiculous. Now, let me just put it in perspective when they think about their forgiveness and reconciliation. This happened, and Instagram literally took my video down because they said it was threatening. But I guess what happened when I reshared someone else's video, which is woke video, when I reshared it, the girl's page was still up. It has since now been taken down.
Fuck you niggers. You guys should be fucking slaves. Tries guardianship. He talks like niggers like slaves.
Yeah, you
like fucking niggers. Fuck you niggers. You guys should be fucking slaves. Tries guardianship. He talks like niggers like slaves.
Yeah. And in the meantime, this is what they are talking about. Now, What difference is it from what she just said to Dylan Roof? You know what I mean? And we got people like that out there just, I mean, come on, man. You know, you got to have better sense than that. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So, you know, it is what it is. But, oh, I had to save it. Absolutely. Because I knew they were going to scrub that. You know, we know how they get down. So, yeah. Unfortunately, too many of our people have that forgiveness line in their mind. And, you know, let me show you this other one. Okay, there we go. I'll show you this other. I gotta show y'all this. So, in the conversation of forgiveness, we have Botham Jean's brother. Y'all remember him? He was the brother from the Amber Geiger case. Can y'all see that? Botham Jean's brother to receive Ethical Courage Award for show of forgiveness at Amber Geiger murder trial. Woo-wee. It just doesn't stop, does it? And we say we want justice. How are you talking about social justice from a group of people who have no remorse for killing your loved ones? You got family members you know your ass don't speak to right now, but got the nerve to be hugging these sadistic, demonic, evil, wicked people. And can't wait to throw something else in. So let me get back to the point at hand about Juneteenth. The point is, we can't afford to sit up there and have our holiday when we're celebrating us, ourselves, our ancestors. We don't have time, and we should respect what they went through enough to understand this is an issue all of its own. Juneteenth has nothing to do with Pride Month. That is an LGBT issue. And let's keep it 1,000. How many black and black LGBT couples do you see? I'll wait. You understand? They kill your brother and give you a plaque. And if you're lucky, a check. We got to stop this. We got to stop this. This dude is happy about getting the plaque. I mean, good Lord. Just look at that. What are you doing, my man? You're hugging this woman who just proudly waxed out your brother. But, you know, again, you know, until we are tired, how would they ever be tired? They've already showed their resilienceness. I mean, look at the resilience through all of these years. They go through every imaginable obstacle just to make sure they got black folks oppressed. And if you just seen Tokyo, what I posted the other day from Tokyo, they're reiterating, basically doubling down, and don't you bring that black power stuff out here to Tokyo's Olympics, which they're calling it Black Lives Matter, but really, truth be told, that's just Black Lives. So when, you know, it goes down to that, Plantation Awards, yeah, that's right. And they're proud of it too. Like, you proud of crumbs. It's ridiculous. In the meantime, what I need more people to understand is how they use media. They use media as a tool of war. They've used it as propaganda. In the piece I just showed you, they showed you that they projected what they did to the black people and reversed it when they put it out to the media. Sound familiar? Does it sound like anything they do today? Well, yeah, I would say so. But, you know, oh yeah, definitely eating them butter biscuits. But, you know, I always want to remind people that, you know, the image of superiority is failing. And you can't stop it from failing because time is up. And with that being said, let me show you this video real quick.
Like, it was not a normal situation. It was like pure hatred in his eyes.
Jasmine Bonnet is the owner of Blossom Bath House, selling bath and beauty products in Old Sacramento. She says 55-year-old Ross Wolfer yelled the N-word at her Thursday afternoon, along with other racial slurs while she was at work, then proceeded to break into her store, shattering the glass doors.
As he kicked the whole thing in, and his whole foot, like if he could, he would have came inside. But the loudness of the breaking glass and him breaking the door, like everyone came out.
That's when Muhammad Azif, who owns Old Sac Shirts and Gifts next door, ran outside hearing the commotion to find Bonnet had been injured by the broken glass.
Very scared, and yeah, I think she got some, little bit injured. The blood was coming out from her hand.
Sacramento Police Department says Wolfer was arrested for burglary, vandalism, and hate crime-related charges. Bonnet says even with the attack happening in broad daylight, she felt it was difficult for her to prove to law enforcement that it was a hate crime.
It was almost like pulling teeth to get them to admit it during the whole entire process. So I kept saying it. I kept repeating, like, this is what he said to me. Like, this is a hate crime.
Bonnet feels there needs to be stricter laws for hate crimes because she says even though an arrest was made, her attacker may still run free.
They were giving me warnings that it might not stick because it's a misdemeanor hate crime. He didn't actually beat me to a pulp or rape me or do anything of that kind of nature.
The Sacramento Police Department says that the district attorney's office is now taking over this case. But as for the owner, she says she's an Oak Park native and won't let this racist act scare her from keeping her business open.
But you can get a whole felony hate crime charge on a nation. They were trying to underreport this. She said it was like pulling teeth to get them to call it a hate crime. She had to repeat to the police time and time again the racial shit that was being said to her. But if you argue with an Asian person right now, they're going to hem you up. But this is a misdemeanor because he didn't beat her up or rape her? So then verbal assault is a felony or not? And then how are they telling her, well, you know, don't get your hopes up because it probably won't stick? Really? Oh, he's clearly dangerous. You can see the hatred in his eyes. I mean, he out there with his shirt off. Ain't no telling what's going on in that man's mind. So, but he was definitely clear of the hatred he had. And, you know, that's nothing new. We are well aware of that. But, you know, I just wanted to say how this attempting hijack of reparations or of Juneteenth, and really it's just to thwart the conversation of reparations. That's all this is about. So, you know, when you see Republicans and Democrats agreeing on something for Black folks, understand we ain't the ones benefiting. What this does is get the people that we possibly could reach and affect if they weren't so far gone. Because right now, just think about it. Look at what you're seeing. Are you seeing any kind of justice? Not at all. Not at all. Oh, and let me go show you. I need to show y'all this. And, you know, I pretty much wanted to make this point because let me show you this. And as some of you probably already saw it, I'm sure. But I want to just look at this. Let's see. Get on the screen here. I just want y'all to take a look at something. Because when people don't understand what where I'm coming from half the time, I'm really truly invested in what I talk about and what I do. I've definitely been this for quite some time. With that being said, okay, no, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. So y'all see that on the screen? Yeah. Look at the dates. Let me get this banner off. That banner off the screen there. Okay, so just look at them dates right there. I want y'all to see the dates. Okay? Can't nobody say that anybody is being hateful or propaganda when we need to make sure that we protect our own legacy and history. It's up to us to do so. We cannot let anybody else bring something else to the party. And my biggest thing about having these Juneteenths and these things that represent the Black community as a whole, the very first thing you start doing when you do Black is creating separation. So don't think adding something and then somebody rejecting it promotes separation. No. It was already separate. You trying to include it is the problem because it's not there. And I can't see how you would even relate. Why would anybody want to relate sexual exploitation to what you're doing right now? Which is just a different form of exploitation of your own selves. Everybody needs to know who you sleep with. That doesn't even make sense in the first place. I mean, regardless of your sexual preference, that's your choice. Cool. But when you always have to be mindful of how Black things are under attack just because it's Black. And to say, well, let's talk about Black women. Well, let's talk about Black LGBT. Guess what's usually left out of that conversation? Black children, Black families, and Black men. And one thing I want to tell y'all, for y'all who may have been born men and now identify as a woman, the system itself will never identify you as a woman. So if you get murdered or killed out here in the streets, your body goes down as a male statistic. You might want to question why that is. Or maybe you know and just don't want to be told the truth. But in any event, that has nothing to do with chattel slavery other than the rape, castration, and buck breaking of your ancestors. And you know how you got ancestors? You're here today to celebrate it because they were reproducing. Get out of your emotions. You can't build a nation without a family, because none of us would be here without some male-female interaction. And that is what we're celebrating on Juneteenth. Okay? Because the women were out in the field just like the men. They didn't get no breaks. They had to get out there and get it. The Black woman was not domesticated and all of this newfound fangled mess until recently. And white women use Black women to do it. So while you're being your wife, raising your children in your community, think about it. What was the white women doing at that moment of, say, when Rosewood was cracking and when Black Wall Street was cracking and when was it Liberty City, Freedom Town? When all of these different places was cracking, it had women business owners, Biddy Mason in LA, rich black women. Oh, and then the other sister who was funding John Brown. I think somebody also mentioned that John Brown didn't exist, but there's a whole person out here who was funding his movement. Ooh-wee. Yeah, I'm always leery when people start talking crazy. Talking about, well, this didn't exist and this real. Shut up. You liar. Who told you that? You read a book and that told you that? Ooh-wee. I'm glad I was born in the 70s because at least there was still some people around that knew some things. But with that being said, I just wanted to touch on this real quick because it's the Juneteenth hustle, and everybody want to make money with our thing. And again, it's always about rewriting us out of history, changing history for when we were actually in a position to be celebrated. Just like these sisters that just got snubbed, because I'll call it a snub. These little girls, or young women, have earned the right to be valedictorians, took the harder classes to be classified as valedictorians, and yet because the cries of underachieving white children and their parents, they bended the rules. That doesn't happen for us. That doesn't happen for our children. So if you think that you can bring that to the cookout, no, you cannot. You got to keep the raisin and the potato salad over where it belongs. This right here is a black event. If you black and LGBT, guess what? That means you. If you're black and trans, guess what? Yes, that means you. Black lesbian. If you want to do whatever you want to do and identify how you want to identify, guess what? Yes, this too means you. Black Music Month by a president, Jimmy Carter, 1979. Why was it so important for them to put LGBT Pride Month by Barack Obama in these newer 2000s? He made sure to do that before he got his black ass out of office now, didn't he? How about that? Yeah, that's the difference between the wolf and the fox. And everybody thought that Trump was that bad. No. This is where you really see what's bad, because Democrats are just like the females I played you. And some Republicans too. What you need to understand, all white supremacists do just like those women do. All of them. Whether you are part of a Democrat or whether you are an alien from outer space, as long as you are down with white supremacy, that means you. So I hope I only have to address this once. Black history includes everyone. When you come into our space and start separating us, we are going to get at that ass. Welcome, Tasha or Tasha Jones. Welcome. And with that being said, family, I just wanted to head and touch this, and I will be posting this up. Democrats and Republicans are white supremacists. Absolutely. And you know, like Jason Black always says, the Black Authority, you know, two wings of the same bird. Ain't a damn thing different. So everybody, I hope you understand that. Make sure that you are not easily duped, because, you know, we have a lot of people out here that would like to try to confuse people. But at the end of the day, when you are in a position to forgive someone, that means they actually came to you in the spirit of repair. Not somebody that said, I was proud to kill your damn family, and I do it again. I'm proud to be white. Come on now. We know them folk. I mean, I'm in Portland, Oregon. We had the Dixieland Mattress Company up in here. Like I've told y'all before, there's a Confederate graveyard right down the street. And I'm in Portland, Oregon. You understand me? Why did we arm all of our like statues here of slave owners? And that's what they were crying about. So in my York video, if you didn't know the update about Jeanette Grode, well, the police cited her with a ticket. They did not arrest her because of, they said they didn't have any room in the jail. Hoo-wee. And with that, Babylon is falling. Babylon is falling. Let it fall and let us rise. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, you have tuned in to Our Real Truth with beatzillapdx official. And you can follow me on Instagram, beatzillapdx, Twitter, beatzillapdx, and Facebook, beatzillapdx, and on Melanated People, Michael Beatzilla Whitmore. If you have any questions, you could definitely hit me up, email me at ourrealtruth@gmail.com. That's ourrealtruth@gmail.com. And of course, for those of you who have put some money on it before, and I always appreciate the donations, greatly appreciate it, past, present, and future. So if you want to put something on it, please, you can go by donation at CashApp, $beatzillapdx. That's CashApp, $beatzillapdx. And, with that being said, folks, I think I am about out of here. Y'all have a blessed day. And y'all remember, everybody can't come. You know what I mean? Unfortunate, but that is the case. Everybody just ain't gonna make it. But let's look for the faithful few. Oh, not to step on any toes, but I do want to be clear. If you hear people start using the 300 thing, understand that actually came from the first 300 that donated to the very first Hidden Colors movies for Tariq Nasheed. I understand that would be something cool to say, but let's always give homage to where things come from, shall we? That's all I'm saying. That makes sense to y'all, right? It's not too much to ask for. Yeah. Not too much to ask for at all. So, with that being said, please, again, like, share, subscribe. Okay. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel, please. And put it on your social media. You dig? Hey. And with that, y'all, I'm gone.